In the quiet town of Ash, North Carolina, life moved at a slow, predictable pace. It was the kind of place where neighbors greeted each other by name, where generations stayed rooted, and where the past never truly faded. For Donald Spaulding, life revolved around hard work and family. He was a man who believed in discipline, who built his life brick by brick, and who, at 51 years old, was respected among his peers. A devoted husband to Shirley Spaulding and a stepfather to her daughter, Don worked tirelessly on his farm, finding solace in the simplicity of rural life. He had a reputation for being fair but firm, a man who believed in right and wrong with little room for gray areas. His friends recall a man who loved his land, his horses, and the quiet moments at the end of a long day. But behind the closed doors of his home, a different reality festered. The marriage between Don and Shirley was anything but peaceful. Tensions brewed beneath the surface, whispers of arguments, of financial struggles, of growing resentment. And then, one night in 1985, everything changed. Don Spaulding was found lying face up in the middle of his barn, 3 gunshot wounds piercing his chest. The town of Ash, which had seen its share of misfortunes, had never been rocked by something as brutal as this. The scene was grim. Blood pooled beneath Don's body, soaking into the wooden slats of the barn floor. His eyes were still open, as if frozen in his last moment of shock. The method of execution was precise and cold. Whoever had done this hadn't given Don a chance. Sheriff's deputies arrived at the Spaulding property, greeted by the harrowing cries of Shirley Spaulding. She clutched her chest, wailing, insisting she had no idea who could have done this. Neighbors gathered at the property line, whispering and speculating. Murder wasn't something this town was accustomed to. Detectives scoured the scene for evidence. The weapon was missing, no forced entry, no signs of struggle. Nothing seemed out of place, except for Don Spaulding's lifeless body. In the days that followed, investigators turned their attention to the people closest to Don, and that meant Shirley. Shirley Spaulding was a woman known for her ambition. She had married Don years prior, bringing her daughter into the marriage, and together they had built a life that, from the outside, seemed stable. But inside their home, cracks had formed, financial troubles plagued them. Shirley's spending habits had outpaced Don's income, and their arguments had become louder and more frequent. Rumors swirled that Shirley had spoken about wanting Don gone, that she had complained about feeling trapped in her marriage. And then there was the matter of Don's life insurance policy, a policy that named Shirley as the sole beneficiary. Detectives questioned Shirley extensively, but without direct evidence, there was little they could do. The case went cold. Years passed, and the memory of Don Spaulding's murder faded from the minds of many in Ash. But for those who loved him, the wound never closed. His friends and family kept his name alive, refusing to let his case be forgotten. It wasn't until 18 years later that the case resurfaced, and it all began with a phone call. On a quiet night, Wes Evans, a patrol officer in Brunswick County, received a call from his oldest brother, Blake. His voice was urgent. He needed to see Wes immediately. Blake was a truck driver, a man who kept to himself and lived a straightforward life. He wasn't the type to panic. But that night, there was something in his tone that unsettled Wes. When they met, Blake's face was pale. His hands trembled, and then he said something that sent a chill through Wes's spine. "Trent killed that man," Blake whispered. Wes froze. Trent Evans was their younger brother, the wild card of the family. The one who had always flirted with trouble, who had spent his teenage years pushing boundaries. According to Blake, Trent had confessed. He had compared Don Spaulding's murder to something that had happened to him before, a cryptic remark that left little room for doubt. "I said, 'What you're saying is you did kill the man,'" Blake recalled. Trent's response was chilling. "Hell yeah." Wes knew he had a choice. He was a police officer bound by duty. But Trent wasn't just any suspect. He was family. When Wes took the information to his superiors, Lieutenant David Crocker and Captain Gene Kaysen of the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office, they pulled Don Spaulding's cold case file. What they found was a connection they hadn't seen before. Trent Evans had once been married to Shirley Spaulding's daughter. And suddenly the pieces started to fall into place. Investigators devised a plan. They asked Wes to wear a wire, to set up a meeting with Trent, to draw out a confession. Wes agreed, but the weight of the task was heavy. Trent was his brother. They had grown up together, shared childhood memories, and protected each other. Now he was being asked to betray that trust. The meeting took place at their father's grave, a place heavy with memories, with unspoken words. As Wes confronted his brother, he watched every flicker of emotion, searching for truth in Trent's face. And then, it happened. A quiet admission. A whispered, "Yes, I was." That was all detectives needed. Less than 3 hours later, Trent Evans was in an interrogation room, facing the reality of his situation. At first, he denied everything. But when detectives played back the wire recording, his demeanor changed. The walls were closing in. Then his story shifted. He claimed he was being framed by Blake, by the police, by everyone. But it was too late. And then there was Shirley. When Trent realized there was no way out, he pointed the finger at Shirley Spaulding. He told detectives that Shirley had offered him money to kill Dawn. Police needed more. They needed Shirley to incriminate herself. So they used Trent. They sent him in with a wire, hoping she would slip. And she did. Her words sealed her fate. A discussion about money, about the murder, about how it had all been covered up. The case that had remained unsolved for nearly 2 decades had finally broken wide open. In the spring of 2004, justice finally caught up with Don Spaulding's killers. Shirley Spaulding was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Trent Evans received 21 years. Michael Strickland, another accomplice, got 25 years. For Don's loved ones, there was a sense of closure, but also grief. 18 years had passed. 18 years without answers, without justice. For Wes Evans, the weight of his decision lingered. He had done what was right, but at the cost of his family. At the end of the day, one is right and one is wrong, and you got to make that choice. For the people of Ash, North Carolina, the past had finally been laid to rest, but the echoes of that night in the barn would never be forgotten. The case of Don Spaulding serves as a stark reminder that justice, no matter how delayed, will find its way to the surface. For nearly 2 decades, the truth remained buried, hidden behind silence, fear, and betrayal. But in the end, the weight of guilt proved too heavy to carry. For law enforcement, persistence and dedication cracked the case. For Don's family, justice brought long-awaited answers, though it could never replace what was lost. And for Wes Evans, the decision to uphold the law over loyalty defined his character forever. The lesson is clear: secrets don't stay buried, and justice doesn't forget. Cold cases grow old, but they never truly close until the truth is found. Delta, Oklahoma, a town built on the wealth of oil and industry, but not far from its prosperity. On the other side of the tracks, life in central Tulsa looks different. The streets are tougher, opportunities fewer. It's here that 13-year-old Justin Wiles lives. By all accounts, Justin is a good kid. He's small for his age, but quick-witted, always flashing a crooked grin at his neighbors. He spends his summers mowing lawns, raking leaves, and doing odd jobs for a little extra cash. If someone's car won't start, Justin is the first one under the hood, eager to help. But there is one rule Justin never breaks. His mother's #1 commandment is to be home before she gets back from work. She works long hours to support her children and depends on Justin to be responsible. He always is. Until one evening, when he isn't. His mother gets home and calls for him. No answer. His little sister Lynn says he was there earlier but is now gone. "What do you mean you can't find him?" his mother asks. The panic in her voice grows with every unanswered call, every knock on a neighbor's door. Justin never runs away. He never disappears. By morning, she calls the police. 30 miles south of Tulsa, at Lake Vixoma, a fisherman heads to the water just as the sun rises. The lake is still, the kind of morning where the mist hovers just above the surface. As he steps onto the shore, something strange catches his eye. Sticking out of the mud, not a rock, not driftwood, but something pale. A hand. By the time the police arrive, the discovery turns into a horror scene. The remains aren't intact. An arm, a leg, a torso, a head. They're all recovered separately, scattered in the shallows. The body is sent for autopsy, but the medical examiner faces a grim reality. The water and decomposition have erased many of the clues. There's no clear cause of death, no foreign hairs, no DNA. The body has been carefully dismembered, the work of someone who knew what they were doing. Still, one thing is obvious. The victim is young, a child. The dismemberment, the careful disposal, it's a message. Whoever did this is sending a signal. Detectives scramble to identify the body, and within days the worst fears of Justin's family are confirmed. The missing boy is no longer missing. He has been found, but not in a way any mother should have to face. Justin Wiles is dead. Sergeant Wayne Allen is assigned to the case. The brutality of the murder tells him one thing. This was personal. He starts with Justin's family, retracing the boy's last steps. His mother tells police that Justin had a favorite hangout spot, a local auto body shop called Choppers. It's run by a man named Wayne Garrison. At first, the name means nothing to Sergeant Allen, but to the older officers in the department it means everything. Because Wayne Garrison has killed before. Halloween night, 1972. 13-year-old Wayne Garrison is playing hide-and-seek with his younger cousin, Dana Dean. Only the game turns deadly. The 4-year-old girl's body is later found strangled, stuffed into the crawlspace beneath her home. Garrison confesses, but at 13 he isn't tried as an adult. Instead, he's labeled a child in need of supervision and sent to a psychiatric hospital. 2 years later, the system allows him a home visit. During that visit, another child goes missing. 3-year-old Craig Neal disappears from the neighborhood. Days later, his body is found mutilated, hidden under the front porch of Garrison's grandmother's house. Again, Garrison avoids adult prosecution. He is sent away. His record is sealed. Now, decades later, another child is dead, and police are wondering, has Wayne Garrison started killing again? The investigation closes in on Garrison. Police question him, but he denies any involvement. He claims Justin Wiles was a good kid, that he'd been to his shop before, but insists he had nothing to do with the boy's disappearance. There is no physical evidence, no witnesses, and after months of chasing leads, the case goes cold. Wayne Garrison moves his family out of Tulsa, settling in Charlotte, North Carolina. The murder of Justin Wiles slips into the archives, just another unsolved case, until 1999. Deep inside the Tulsa PD, there's a room filled with shelves of old case files, hundreds of cold cases, families still waiting for justice. Detectives Roy Heim and Mike Huff pull one from the shelf. Justin Wiles. They read through the reports, searching for anything missed. A clue, a lead, anything that can be the thread to unravel the case. Then they find it. A photograph, a bite mark. It's faint, almost overlooked, but it's there, and in that moment the detectives know this is the break they've been waiting for. Dr. Brian Hertz is a country dentist by trade, but when he isn't fixing cavities, he's working in forensics, identifying bodies and analyzing bite marks. The cold case detectives bring him Justin's file, pointing to the photograph. Hertz examines the mark and makes a crucial determination. This is a human bite. The next question, does it match Justin? With the family's permission, Justin's body is exhumed. Dr. Hertz makes a mold of the boy's teeth and notices something unusual. A deep wear pattern, the result of a habitual grinding motion. To confirm his findings, he creates a device that mimics the movement of a human jaw, then asks his dental assistants to volunteer their arms for a test. The results are undeniable. The bite mark on Garrison's arm matches exactly. Police have their proof. Wayne Garrison is arrested and charged with the murder of Justin Wiles. The trial lasts 12 days. The judge refuses to allow the jury to hear about Garrison's past murders, but the bite mark evidence is damning. After 6 hours of deliberation, the verdict comes down. Guilty. The jury then hears about Garrison's dark history and the children he killed before Justin, the mutilations, the years he spent evading justice. After 2 more hours of deliberation, the jury makes its final decision. Wayne Garrison is sentenced to death. Today, Wayne Garrison sits on death row in Oklahoma, locked in a cell for 23 hours a day. No parole, no appeals that can erase what he did. For Justin's mother, it isn't enough to bring her son back. Nothing ever will. But it is enough to know one thing. Wayne Garrison will never hurt another child again. And that, she says, is justice. Justice should never have an expiration date. Advances in forensic science like bite mark analysis, DNA testing, and digital tracking are helping law enforcement solve cases that once seemed impossible. If you or someone you know has information about a cold case, speak up. Every clue, no matter how small, can bring a family closer to the truth. Support forensic advancements, advocate for victim rights, and demand that no case be left behind. Because every victim deserves justice. The summer of 1984 in Kansas was like any other. The vast flatlands stretched endlessly, the days were warm, and young adults fresh out of high school looked toward their futures with hope. Among them was 19-year-old Paula Guyleen Godfrey, an ambitious and bright young woman eager to step into the workforce. With dreams of a successful career, she responded to a promising job advertisement in the local paper. A man named John Edward Robinson offered her a position in his business. Paula, full of excitement, shared the news with her parents and prepared for what seemed like a great opportunity. John Robinson, a seemingly respectable businessman, told Paula she needed to attend a training seminar out of town. On August 23, 1984, she left home, stepping into Robinson's car, unaware it would be the last time her parents would see her alive. When they failed to hear from her, worry set in. Days turned into weeks, and still no sign of their daughter. Then a letter arrived. It was typed, with Paula's signature at the bottom, stating she was fine and that she did not want to see her family. Suspicious, Paula's parents contacted the police, but with no solid evidence of foul play, the case went cold. Paula Godfrey had vanished without a trace. Just months later, in January 1985, another young woman's fate would follow a similar path. Lisa Stasi was a 19-year-old single mother, struggling to provide for her 5-month-old daughter, Tiffany. Desperate for stability, she sought help through a local outreach program, where she encountered a seemingly generous benefactor, John Robinson. He offered Lisa not only financial assistance, but a fresh start, complete with a job and a stable home. Hopeful for her future, she accepted his help and moved into a motel room he had arranged for her. On January 7, 1985, Lisa checked into the Roadway Inn. 3 days later, she and baby Tiffany disappeared. Like Paula Godfrey before her, Lisa's family received letters, supposedly from Lisa, stating that she was leaving and wanted no contact. The letters were a chilling echo of Paula's case. The only difference is Tiffany reappeared years later, adopted by Robinson's brother and his wife under forged papers. But Lisa? She was never seen again. Over the next few years, the disappearances continued. In 1987, 27-year-old Catherine Frances Clampett answered an ad for a secretarial position with Robinson. She had recently moved to Kansas City, hoping for a fresh start. But like the others, she vanished without a trace. Despite mounting concerns from families, police had little to go on. The cases remained frustratingly open-ended, with Robinson continuing his life as a respected businessman, churchgoer, and family man. The 1990s saw a resurgence of Robinson's dark activities. Beverly Bonner, a librarian, left her husband to work for Robinson after his release from prison on unrelated fraud charges. She sent letters to her family, explaining her new life, but the communication eventually stopped. For years, her alimony checks continued to be cashed, but not by her. Then came Sheila and Debbie Faith. Sheila, a single mother caring for her disabled 15-year-old daughter, Debbie, was lured to Kansas by Robinson's promise of financial support. She and her daughter vanished in 1994. For the next 7 years, Robinson continued to collect Sheila's Social Security benefits, cashing them for his use. By the late 1990s, Robinson had refined his methods. The internet provided him with new hunting grounds, and he used BDMS forums to lure victims. One such woman was 21-year-old Izabela Lewicka, a Polish immigrant who believed she was in a relationship with Robinson. She thought they were married and moved in with him, but soon she too disappeared, her fate unknown for years. Then, in 2000, Robinson targeted Suzette Troughton, a 27-year-old from Michigan. Like Isabella, she entered a BDSM relationship with him and moved to Kansas. Her family received letters claiming she was traveling, but her mother, unconvinced, pressed the police for answers. Finally, the authorities took notice. A complaint by a woman accusing Robinson of sexual battery led detectives to launch an investigation. When they dug deeper, they found a disturbing pattern. Surveillance teams began tracking him, uncovering his history of missing women and financial fraud. Then, in June 2000, police executed search warrants on his property. What they found was beyond horrifying. On his Lynn County, Kansas farm, they discovered 2 large barrels. Inside them were the decomposed remains of 2 women. More searches led them to a storage unit in Missouri, where 3 more bodies were found in barrels. DNA testing confirmed what investigators feared. These were the missing women, including Beverly Bonner, Sheila Faith, and her daughter Debbie. With the bodies found and overwhelming evidence, Robinson was arrested. In 2002, he was convicted in Kansas for the murders of Suzette Troughton and Isabella Lewicka, receiving the death penalty. He was also sentenced to life for the murder of Lisa Stasi. To avoid another death sentence, he later pleaded guilty in Missouri to 5 more murders, including those of Paula Godfrey and Catherine Clampett. Robinson never admitted to the crimes. He never revealed how he killed his victims or where the remains of some, like Lisa Stasi, were located. His family was in disbelief, struggling to reconcile the man they knew with the monster the evidence revealed. His victims' families, though relieved at his capture, were left with lingering pain. Many still wonder what truly happened to their loved ones in their final moments. The courtroom provided some closure, but not enough to erase the years of grief. John Robinson now sits on death row in Kansas, held at the El Dorado Correctional Facility. His case remains one of the most chilling examples of a serial killer hiding in plain sight, exploiting trust and authority to commit unimaginable crimes over nearly 2 decades. Though justice has been served, the full extent of his horrors may never be known. John Robinson's case is a chilling reminder of how easily predators can hide in plain sight, preying on the vulnerable while maintaining a facade of normalcy. Over nearly 2 decades, he manipulated, deceived, and ultimately murdered multiple women using false promises and forged documents to cover his tracks. His arrest in 2000 ended his reign of terror, but the full extent of his crimes may never be known. Even now, questions remain about missing bodies, untold stories, and the true number of his victims. For the families of the women he killed, justice was served, but closure remains elusive. Robinson sits on death row, a silent figure refusing to answer the final questions that could bring peace to those he harmed. His case serves as a grim warning about the dangers of blind trust, especially in an age where criminals can exploit technology to find and manipulate victims. If this case teaches us anything, it's the importance of vigilance. Always verify opportunities that seem too good to be true. Trust your instincts when something feels off. And if you or someone you know is in a vulnerable position, reach out to authorities, friends, or support groups. Awareness and caution can make all the difference. Stay informed, stay safe, and never stop seeking justice for those who can no longer speak for themselves.